So the very first thing I want to talk about are the two things that human beings use to function and kind of figure our way out through life, because life is a big unknown. I mean, we can use our intellect to plan things, but the reality is none of us really know what's going to happen in 5 or 10 minutes from now. Maybe if we're really lucky, we'll have a moderate earthquake during this video to demonstrate just how unpredictable life can be. But most of us, most of the time, we function with our emotions and our intellect. And our emotions are about feelings and intuition, love, fear, etc. Our intellect is about thoughts and ideas. And of course, plans. And we live in a time and place where people are real big on plans. And we should be, by the way. If you're going to go on a trip, if you're going to drive, you should get the oil changed in your car before you go. You should have a mechanic look it over, or look it over yourself to make sure that there's a belt about to break, or a tire that's about to go flat, or whatever. But our emotions develop first. Most of the research we have says that our emotional being starts developing when we're still in our mother's womb. Certainly, by the 3rd trimester, we're soaking up whatever's going on outside. If our mother is unhappy, we pick up on her sadness. If she's anxious or nervous, we pick up on her anxiety. I know lots of mothers who talk about how a certain child will absorb the emotions that they were feeling when they were pregnant with that child, and they believe that that has affected the child all through their life. Who am I to argue with them? You know, they were the mom and it was their kid. So our emotional life comes first. And in terms of human development and the stages of human development, we spend the first about 4.5, 5 years of our lives being little bundles of emotion. This is why infants and toddlers, and really kids even up until about 5, don't really have any sense of cause and effect. You know, you can say to them, well, don't do this now because it's going to cause this bad thing to happen like tomorrow. And they're going like, tomorrow? What's tomorrow? I don't even comprehend an hour from now, so why are you confusing me with tomorrow? This is why we don't put children in school until they get to be about 5 years old, because they're not capable of remembering the stuff that they need to develop their intellect. Now, in terms of emotional health, the first 5 years, in fact, probably the first 3 years, if not the first 3 months of a child's life, is critical with regard to some basic things. You know, little kid, imagine yourself being this really small person surrounded by giants. And you can't understand what the giants are saying, but you can make decisions like, are the giants friendly? Are the giants helpful? Do I feel safe around the giants? Do I get the sense that the giants care about me and are going to take care of me? Children make these decisions at a very early age. And if there's any kind of trauma in the child's life, especially that first 5 years, and of course, the giants look down and say, we're really sorry. We were on our way to the 7-Eleven, and yes, you were strapped in your car seat, but a pickup truck broadsided us, and the car spun around 5 times, and there was a lot of noise, and it was really scary. We're glad you're okay. And you're like this little going, know is you were scared to death. And everybody was screaming and yelling, and it was loud, and glass exploding all over the place. So you're probably going to have a reaction the next time they want to put you in one of those metal and glass boxes with wheels that hums and goes places. You're probably going to freak out the next time you smell that thing, or something that smells like that thing. Now, one of the reasons why this is really important is because what we're continuing to discover is that lots of emotional problems are rooted in very early childhood trauma. And of course, because the baby can't talk about it for the next few months, like adults do. Adults do, oh yeah, that accident was terrible, you ran the red light. And we sort of process it through with a combination of our intellect and our ideas, remembering, but the kid can't do that. So we say, well, the kid seems fine, nothing seems to be the matter. Well, it's going to manifest itself years later. Okay? So this is really why it's important to keep children, especially small children, in an environment where there's as little trauma as possible, where they feel safe and loved and secure. And I want to be very clear, it doesn't matter who is safe and loving and secure, as much as the fact that they have that safety, that love, and that security. My mother went to work right after I was born in a business that she and my father were opening, and this was in Central Florida, and they did what a lot of people did in those days. They hired a black woman to take care of me and my brother. So Corrine was my mother for the first 4 years of my life, and when she died when I was about 4 years old, it was very traumatic for me. And so this is just an example of this whole, how our emotions are so important in the first 5 years of our life. Now, then we start developing intellectually, and that's why they put us in school. They put us in school because we can remember things and we can begin to conceptualize ideas and thoughts, things like ABC and 2 + 2 = 4 in language. So our intellectual side starts developing around age 5. And then we kind of go along with both when we're kids, but emotionally we remain bonded to our parents or our caregiver because, we want to make them happy. It's like, that's my dad, that's my mom. I love them, I want to make them happy. I want to be a good kid, Jimmy Carter, the former president, talks about this in the book that he wrote about his childhood called An Hour Before Daylight, about how when he was 6 years old, his father had lost his keys and asked him to go into the house that they had just purchased to open the front door, and how proud he felt being able to do something for his father that his father couldn't do for himself. Children need to be able to take care of their parents. The impetus of children to take care of their parents is even stronger than that of the parent to take care of the child. And that's very important for you to remember. Because if there was any kind of stuff going on in your parents' life when you were very young, A, you wanted to help fix it so they would be happy and safe. And B, if you couldn't, you probably blamed yourself. You just weren't a good enough kid. God, if I just worked and tried a little harder, mom wouldn't be so unhappy or dad wouldn't be so unhappy. And, there's that great peanut butter commercial, I think it's Skippy, where the mom is up late studying and the little kid who's about 7 or 8 years old goes in and he makes the peanut butter sandwich for his mom, and he comes in and brings it to her like, I want to do something to make you feel better. And she's like, oh. Well, that really embodies the way that all children feel about their parents in that stage after the intellect has started to develop around age 5. It's there before, but we don't have memories of it. And this is this whole emotional, intellectual thing until puberty. And then those hormones hit. And suddenly, you're not a little girl or a little boy, and, oh, mommy and daddy are just the most wonderful people on earth, and they love me unconditionally, and I love them unconditionally. emotionally, and I just want to stay and be happy with them the rest of my life. And then, bam, puberty hits. And suddenly, we become grown-ups. At least we think we are. We feel like we are, because our bodies change very dramatically, and along with that, our emotions change. And the thing is that we don't have the experience to go out and survive on our own in this world, because modern technology and all that, I mean, 200-300 years ago, it was nothing for a 15-year-old boy to leave home, buy his own land, start his own farm, marry some 15-year-old girl and start having kids. That was kind of the norm. But these days, we make adolescents wait for almost 10 years, because now kids are hitting puberty at 10 and 11. And we make them wait until they're at least 18, but if we're going to bribe them with college, then it's at least 22 or 23 that we're writing the checks and they're resenting the heck out of it, okay? Because they want to be able to do it on their own. So this is part of this intellectual, this angst that goes along with being an adolescent. And I tell parents all the time, the control paradigm of just do it because I told you to do it. I'm your dad, that's why I told you to do it. That's not going to be so effective anymore, because their attitude is pfft. So you have to be a little more creative and use what I call the management paradigm. You pretend that you're the boss and they're working for you. So it's like, you do it because you don't want the door taken off your room, do you? It's my house, my rules. You got to do it. That's why. Now, if you do it, I'll take you to that game you want to go to next week. But if you don't, oh well, then I guess you don't want to go to the game. You decide. You're starting to be a grown-up now. You make a choice. And you expect them to do things that are going to make you angry. You expect them to lie to you, to try to cheat. All the stuff you do to your boss at work, right? So, part of how you train them to be effective in the workforce is you let go of the emotional, how dare you lie to me, I can't believe you would lie to me, I thought you loved the president, and all this, and they're sitting there going, is he over yet? You know, I got dates to keep, and so you just say, okay, I caught you in a lie. Privacy is the privilege that goes along with trust in this house. Since you violated my trust, I take the door off your room for a week. You don't get any privacy. That'll remind you, don't tell a lie, or if you do tell a lie, tell a better one so you won't get caught. You decide. And at the end of the week, put the door back on. So that's a little with adolescence and this whole emotional, intellectual thing. And trust me, this window between about 12 and 22, they have to do it. You want your kids to rebel against you, because if they don't, if you ever met somebody who has a 40-year-old kid still at home, and they're kind of like a puppy dog, they come with them to church, they belong to some of their lodge meetings or whatever, they have no life of their own because they're still attached emotionally to mom and dad. You don't want that for your kid. So that's sort of you pay the price of the emotional rebellion, the individuation and separation, where they pull away from you and form themselves both emotionally and intellectually separate from you. It's probably the most difficult time in the life of any parent or any child. Hopefully you'll survive it. So, this intellectual, emotional balance, okay? This is the thing that gets most people into therapy, because they're having a conflict about these two things internally. Now, I've talked a little bit about emotions, and our emotions just kind of are. There's two things about emotions that are very important to remember. And the first is they only exist in the present. Like right now, I'm feeling a little nervous because this is the first time I've ever done this. I have a couple of friends sitting here cheering me on quietly. You can't hear them, and I don't have anyone to run the camera to turn it to show them to you. But basically, I'm doing this kind of winging it on my own and hoping that it's going to work for people. So I have a little bit of anxiety about that. My feet hurt because my feet hurt all the time. And I have a little bit of dry throat. Not so dry anymore. Emotions exist in the here and now. They could usually be described with a single word, not a sentence. And so you might say, well, I feel tired. I feel excited. I feel a little nervous. I feel relieved. I feel joy. I feel satisfaction. I feel anticipation. Single word. And here's the other thing. It can be more than one word. It's not one exclusive thing. And that relates to this piece I'm about to explain. Well, let me go to the intellectual side and then that'll help. Our intellect is thoughts and ideas. What's the thing you learned in 6th grade English? A sentence is a complete thought. And of course, in the 70s, we decided linguistically to do this touchy-feely thing. Instead of saying, I believe that the United States should make its own steel and not import steel from other countries. That's a belief. That's an idea. That's a complete thought. Well, we didn't want to be so harsh, so people started saying, well, I feel that it's better for us to to buy our own steel. Or maybe it would be, I feel it's better for us to import steel so that our American workers won't have to work in those dirty, smelly steel mills anymore. Well, that's not a feeling, that's a belief. But that use has just saturated into the language. So you go to any kind of a meeting, any conversation, blah, blah. Well, I feel that my child isn't doing so well this year in school, and maybe I should do something about that. That's not a feeling, folks, that's a belief. Now the feeling may be, well, I feel scared because if my kid flunks, it's going to be really devastating for everybody. Scared is the feeling. Worried is the feeling. Anxious is the feeling. So the very first thing I tell clients when they come into therapy is to start listening to your language and sorting out the difference between beliefs and feelings, and learning how to use your language to do that. And I would suggest you try this in your own language, in your own daily life. Start listening to all the people around you. You go, well, I feel that Toyota is a better car than a Nissan because, we've had 5 of them and they've just been very reliable. Well, the feeling is security, lack of surprises or, other ambushes, things you don't expect. There's a feeling of satisfaction after, the last one went 150,000 miles and I had new belts put on it. That was it, that sort of thing. But start noticing this belief versus feelings in terms of your language. And then try to focus in on talking about your feelings, your emotions, instead of just your belief system. Now, why is this important? And what has happened in our culture that makes it hard for people to do this? Well, what do we do with kids when they're 5? We put them in school. What do we do with the same kid by the time they're 8 or 9 years old? We start giving them placement tests. And there's a great scene in Bowling for Columbine where the 2 guys who draw the comic strip South Park talk about how we scare kids to death early. Because in 5th grade, we give them their advanced math placement test. And you've got to make a certain score on that advanced math placement test, because if you don't, you're not going to get into advanced math in junior high and high school. And if you don't get into advanced math in junior high and high school, you're not going to be able to get into a top tier college when it's time to go to school. And if you don't graduate from a top tier college, no one's ever going to love you. You're going to be a loser. And that's the kind of world we've created for our kids and for ourselves.